Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of SDRescue. I am one of your hosts, Austin Fuller, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Grayson Fulbright. Grayson, how's it going in Vietnam today?
It is going quite well. It's really sunny out, and I got a break because today Austin is doing the rewrite. So we're going to be checking out a fantastically formatted email that I think we'll talk a little bit about general formatting in terms of HTML when it comes to writing emails and sending it to recipients. But I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, so today I wanted to be a little bit harsher. So on the critique, because I want to show a really wide juxtaposition between the rewrite and the original email. Because normally I wouldn't have picked an email at this level to showcase on the show, but I think it helps really exaggerate what I think the flaw is in a lot of cold outreach. And my rewrite may not be the best written email, but it philosophically will show a huge juxtaposition, a huge contrast in where I think we need to move as sellers and what gets responded to. And it'll be interesting to hear, Grayson, because you do a lot of copywriting for large campaigns, and it'll be good to see, like, your perspective on that as well, to see where the market's moving as far as a practice for us as sellers. So
Right.
I'm going to share the screen. We'll jump into the email here. All right. Everyone can see the Google Doc. It is a Google Doc.
It is a Google Doc.
Excellent. I don't have anything else open. So if you were just seeing a blank screen, then I knew I was sharing the wrong one. All right. So here we go. Hey, Austin, how does tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time work for a meeting? I think our approach to finding and generating new clients might work for Newarks Inc. period. Our solution combines calls, emails, LinkedIn, and social media to make targeted and timely touch points. Please let me know if that works for you. Otherwise, please suggest a better day and time that fits your schedule. If this is not relevant, just reply remove. Okay. So, before we get into the context, I did want to talk about this because this is something that and maybe I'll let Grayson talk about it a little bit, but I put the formatting of the email exactly how it appeared in my Outlook, receiving it from assuming a Gmail sender. So Grayson, do you want to talk a little bit about why this happens?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, when you're sending an email, you're using HTML. And today's email service providers, today's internet service providers, which are the different kind of sources that you use to bounce around a network and send your emails to people, they track how much weight you have in terms of text versus formatting, like italics, bold, different sizes of words, links as well, images. And there's kind of two parts in this conversation. One, when you try to format an email and you're using things that aren't text, it can impact your deliverability because that can send red flags to either the server that's receiving the email or the email service provider or the internet service provider that says, hey, this person's sending text, but sending a lot of non-text things through code. Why? Why so much formatting? Why so many images? Why so many links? So that can impact your deliverability. And then two, we're looking at it right here. When you are formatting emails, especially, and I think this might be what actually happened here, this is my guess, especially when you are formatting emails not directly by you, when you are setting up automation, doing it through a different software, you need to be aware that just because you've formatted the email or you've put in the HTML code to show that, that doesn't necessarily mean that the receiving email server, so Austin here, would actually show everything you're trying to present. And so what you can see here, based on Austin's email server, it came out with odd text, with different size text that looked funky, and also with different fonts. I think my best guess here is that they probably set up the sequence in an email software with some formatting and then sent it through that software to you, Austin, and the formatting got a little messed up. So there's two issues here that I'd focus on. One, the deliverability. Two, the more you format the email, the more chance that it's not going to end up being received the way that it looks.
Yeah, and even if you So I mean, this was probably sent. This is probably an automated email, like, just by judging the writing. But even if you hand wrote this email like this and format it wrong, you're going to ruin all that work you did, and it's going to look like a machine sent it. So I just think it's an important thing to point out, to be aware of how emails, you have to do a very important part about conversion rates and optimizing cold email outreach is making sure you understand just how it's going to look when somebody does open it and read it. Because if it looks wonky and crazy, people immediately think that a machine sent it. Because even if you hand wrote the email, well, not write it, but typed it out, people will assume a machine did it, because people don't send weird, wonky errors and formatting, different fonts and sizes in their emails unless that's, a gimmick you're going for, then maybe it works. I don't know. Maybe we should try that. Let's try that. Let's try sending like every other word a different font and size and see how, just like those like kidnapping letters from mystery movies where it's like cut out magazine clippings. See how that converts. See what the numbers are. Got to test it. All right, back on topic. So a lot of people, this is obviously not a very well written email, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse on this. We've had a lot of emails like this where it's tons of orange and assumptions, but I do want to talk about how this person says, I think our approach to finding and generating new clients might work for New Arcs Inc. Right? That's the precipice of the email. The other, there's no context for why. There's nothing really compelling here. It says our solution combines calls, emails, LinkedIn, and social media to make targeted and timely touch points, of which, this one was not, which isn't a good example. But, I just want to go that this is a very not seller focused, but this email is written from the perspective of the seller, thinking like the seller. And this is a fundamental challenge that I think a lot of people have, is how do you step outside of yourself and write an email for someone else? And that's why people harp on, a lot of influencers and people will talk about empathy and lots of soft skills like that. But it's because if you don't use empathy or don't think through your email, this is what you're left with, right? If you're not thinking about how the other person's going to internalize or receive it, or how to write for someone else, which is something Grayson does really well.
Yeah, I think kind of going to the middle of the email first, I think people fall into this problem where they're trying to essentially push through an approach. I actually just lost my train of thought. Third time in a row this week.
I can talk a lot, so if you want, I got you. My opinion is, so there's something to overcome here, and that's fundamentally humans. When the seller's conundrum, the seller's problem is that other people receive an idea from our brain in a much different way than our brains want to communicate it, if we already know that idea. So because one of the reasons is that we have a lot of context and knowledge in our brains from knowing that information, which leads us to communicate a lot of assumptions. That's why we nitpick and are saying, hey, and you're really good at this. Hey, that's an assumption. Hey, that's an assumption. Hey, that's an assumption. As a human being that already has all that context and info, we forget how much someone doesn't know or doesn't have. And so that's a fundamental issue, because the way someone will receive a message is different from the way that someone who already knows the info will communicate it.
Right. Yeah. And I remember what I was going to say, which is using assumptions in persuasion. And I think I see this a lot, and I have seen this a lot over the years in outreach. It comes in different forms to where it'll be like, I think that this could be a good fit for you, or we've been able to generate success for companies like insert company name, where they basically try to build this argument for you to spend time with them based on these weird kind of propped up assumptions. I think that first part of the sentence, I think our approach is already lacking confidence, and then might work for New Arcs Inc. So even if you forget about the mishap here with the Inc. Incorporated, which is bad, you're basically setting yourself up to say, like, I am not confident, but think that our approach for this might work for you. So it's almost like the weakest way of making that argument of saying, like, hey, I have helped companies like yours do this, or I think that I could get you X result. I think they kind of rode the fence here, and they made an assumption and used it in their persuasive argument, but did so in a way that was a little bit insecure and came off like they didn't know for sure whether or not what they said was actually true. And I think if you're going to make an argument, if you're going to talk about yourself, if you're going to include orange in the email, it needs to be as professional as possible. And because it should be, you're a salesperson. You should be talking to people about your product every day. You should know the in and out of conversation about your space and about your product. And so when you're talking about yourself, you need to be very succinct. That's why often I use social proof or stories rather than just talking about ourselves. So instead of saying, I have helped people, or saying, I think that our approach to this could generate these results for you, I would say, I've helped this person generate these results. Or I'd say, I've seen this company generate these results through this method. It's much more powerful and it's much more compelling when you're actually using evidence behind your statements. If not, you leave this opportunity for the buyer to be suspicious. And instead of focusing on like the message, the matter at hand, they start focusing on you and your brand and how that ties into what you're saying. And then it becomes a game of authority of how well do I know you? How much do I trust you? How well does your brand stack up to the other people that I know in the space? And that's not where you want buyers to focus when they're reading your email. You want them to receive information, capture it, process it, and then hopefully make a decision on it. You never want to throw persuasive arguments to people, especially buyers, that make them stop and say, like, is that true? Should I even move forward and trust this? That's not the place, I think, to be kind of having those interactions with buyers.
Well said. And I don't think that you should lead your email with a meeting request.
I do completely agree, especially with a specific time. That's
very specific time,
like potentially 24 hours
and short time frame.
Yeah,
Hey, can you meet in the next 12 hours? Dude, if you're asking for time in the next 12 hours, you better be selling, you better be giving me money. You better, you know what I mean? Or, have something really awesome, because that is a short turnaround. I don't even, that's a shorter turnaround for like what I plan for dinner, and I need that to survive.
And I'll say this, I think this is a symptom of kind of inbound sales, where speed to lead is the thing, right? Like, get to the lead as fast as possible. If they submit that form, you better be calling them up or trying to get a call like that day. If not that day, then tomorrow. And I think that's leaked into kind of outbound sales and like the sales development rep role, to where they, for some reason, still think that's true for outbound. You're disrupting a stranger and taking time out of their day, but you still think it's an advantage to be as fast as possible. Like, hey, like, what if we have a call this week? Like 8 or like 1 p.m., 2 p.m., or how about tomorrow? Or can I call you later today? And that causes people to feel rushed, because there's not like an inbound situation. It's not where they're seeking information from you and they have an internal timer waiting for you to respond. This is cold outreach out of the blue, and they're more internal timing when you're going to go away. I think it's a different situation, but I see so many reps doing that, and I used to do that as well, where I kind of I overemphasized the speed to lead concept, and was just like trying to get at the leads as fast as possible, or get that momentum building as fast as possible, even if it's an outbound deal who might be more top of funnel, might not be interested in moving forward just yet. So that is a good call out in terms of just trying to ask for a meeting, and trying to ask for a meeting so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I found that it's kind of a 2x2 matrix. Size of company, seniority of position on the x-axis, size of company on the y. You could put them on either axis, doesn't really matter. The higher up in the company and the bigger company it goes, the longer out I put it, the longer out I suggest. If I'm suggesting a time in a meeting or a time frame, so like, for example, if I'm reaching out to a VP at some Fortune 2000, I don't ask like no shorter than like a month out, for example. Like if I'm cold prospecting, we've had some exchange, I don't do it on the first email. But I'm just saying, in general, when you're getting around to suggesting times, when you've reached that part of the conversation, you have to take into account how much other stuff is going on. And if you don't, it's a symptom, at least for me, it's a symptom of like direct sales and the old days in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, door-to-door people, the 2 option, hey, would today at 4 work or tomorrow at 1 be better? You know what I mean? And this thing, because that old school sales trainers that my first sales manager, when I got into the job, would pound this into me. You got to set it for as soon as possible. Keep it urgent. They don't remember, they don't remember if, the desire fades over time and they won't want to have the meeting. They won't show up. But that's the thing, is that all of it stems on this ideal that someone needs to impulsively buy your product, and that if you don't get it in a short enough time frame, then the impulse to be interested and buy the product will fade. While that might be true, if you've identified in B2B, that's not how it works. If you've really identified a real problem and a real pain, something that's costing them money, they'll want to discuss it, but you need to be cognizant and courteous of all the other things. Their business has to keep going. Their business doesn't stop for you just because you found a good problem that costs money. So
yeah, there's a time and a place for it. I mean, I think like follow up. So like if you've had some interactions with the person already, like fine, like that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to just cold pitch for a specific time and a specific day for a meeting if you do not know the person. Like I feel like personally that's never worked for me. For a cold outreach, I don't know the person, they're a stranger. It has not worked for me in the past. Simply just trying to ask for a specific time and get it on the calendar. Keep in mind though, I do think that email is different, and I think that this could work on a call if you're doing cold calling. Being direct like that and trying to get a time on the calendar when you have them live is a different strategy. But we are, talking about email here.
Yes. All right, let's go to the rewrite. So I will be the first to admit that, again, I'm nowhere near the level of copywriter that Grayson is, but the fundamental ideology, and I want to talk about this before I read it. I just want people to look at and see, all right, what is philosophically fundamentally different from the previous email? It says, hey, Austin, I saw that you were recently acquired, and I typically find that means aggressive net new revenue targets for the sales team. Frequently, this means launching into new industry verticals, which can be very risky. If your launch goes awry, it can be cost prohibitive and time consuming to recover. I lead our go-to-market team, and I'd love to send you the go-to-market plan that I use to see if it gives you any ideas. Would this interest you? So my thoughts behind this. I have a philosophy that I'm testing right now, and that works pretty well in our space because just to be full disclosure, so I sell cybersecurity services and SaaS. We have software, we have services, we have a variety of offerings in that space. And the cybersecurity industry itself is a very big communal knowledge sharing kumbaya place where we all want to share and make each other better, because the more we know, the more we advance, the more everyone advances, and the better we get as an industry and as a discipline. And I think by and large, most industries and disciplines are like that. I don't know where, dentists aren't secretly competing to make sure that everyone else has worse dental care except for the one dentist, right? Dentists want to get better. They want to make sure everyone's oral health is better. Same with brain surgeons and stuff. That's why all these trade shows and conferences and associations exist, right? To facilitate that exchange of knowledge and interaction as a community. And so for this, if I was selling outsourced lead generation or appointment setting services, right? An SD sales development sort of service, I would want someone to come to me as a peer, and I try to use these are real things that I'm going through right now because we were recently acquired. And frequently, if you are acquired and retained, the acquiring company does have very aggressive growth targets for the new company. They just spent millions of dollars or billions, depending on the size of your company. And they want it to grow. They want it to prosper. And so for me, one of the questions is, all right, if I had somebody reach out to me and said, hey, we go into new industry verticals all the time. We do launches constantly. I'd love to send you my go-to-market plan to see if it gives you some ideas. Now we're peers, right? And now we can have conversations on topics that you care about. And I'm going to be much more forthcoming as a buyer with information about me and what's going on in my world. So I think it's a much better way to start a conversation than the previous email.
Yeah, I think the stark difference in my mind is really the takeaway of the email, or the kind of the outcome of reading it. Because in sales, even if someone isn't ready to connect with you, ideally you want to leave a good first impression, both for your personal brand and for the brand that you work for. And what's really noticeable about this email is regardless of whether or not I'm in market, there is information that I can use to learn, and there is value that I can use to grow. And I think that's really important because many people, and we talked about this last week, a lot of sellers focus too much on it being like a very transparent sales conversation. They're like, hey, I'm trying to get you in a meeting to talk about our product and how we can help this team of yours. Would you have some time? And that's very predictable. It's very robotic. Buyers know how to deal with that. Have adjusted quickly in how to either dismiss or delay or maybe reroute conversations like that, because that's what they do. But if you can adjust how you're talking to them, and like Austin said, if you could become a peer and simply be someone on their level that is exchanging information with them, that's the definition of building rapport. If they're accepting information from you and you're not leaving a bad taste in their mouth and you're providing a positive experience every single time that you do that, every time that they reread the email, every time that they check out a link that you send, that is going to increase and kind of build momentum towards that relationship. That, sometimes you'll have a good brand and a good set of messaging, and you'll be targeting the right people, and you'll just simply get conversations because they're really qualified, you're a good fit, and the timing's right. But a lot of times, especially in the SDR role, you have to leverage relationships because most people are not in market. Most people are not even looking. Most people avoid avoid salespeople. And so what you need to do is sometimes learn how to leverage a relationship that you build over time to try to get to the end goal of a sales conversation. This email, this rewrite, has nothing to do with a sales conversation. While it's Austin's end goal with this rewrite to get a meeting, it mentions nothing about like wanting to pitch the recipient anything. It doesn't say anything about how like we're intending to help you or we see a good fit. It's simply sharing market information and then offering kind of a value exchange that the rep or you, Austin, could use to then move the conversation forward. So I think it's a really good rewrite.
I just think though, like I get a lot of these, right? I get a lot of people who are like, we can set appointments for you, we can generate leads for you. And I'm trying to think, dude, if I was selling, how would I put my best foot forward? Well, one of the really difficult things, if anyone's ever launched into a new vertical or done any sort of new product launch, it's a one and done deal. You don't get a second shot. It's like releasing a movie, right? No one gets to redo a bad movie premiere. Same thing with a product launch. So it's very risky and very easy to get wrong. You can ruin it pretty quickly. So if you, and the one thing that I find that, not one thing, there's a lot of things, but I think about, dude, what would an outsourced SDR firm have of value? These people are launching, like literally every time you get a new client, you're launching into a new vertical, right? Now you might have several verticals you specialize in and customers, but never the exact product, right? You're taking something, you're literally the tip of the spear for the go-to-market team. And that's something, and the data that you have, I mean, you could build out a ton of data on launches or traction. You could build out, there's tons of insights that you could offer somebody that is working in a company. And this is something that, like, so for example, design and marketing agencies have to offer, like somebody that has agency experience, which is essentially what a lot of outsourced services are, right? You're an SDR agency, you're a marketing agency, you have exposure to a variety of data sets of this large breadth of experience that you should be leveraging. And it goes back to this. So I contribute to a lot of online forums, and in several of them, it's taken time, but I have really nice flares or accolades or things bestowed upon me by the admins of the forum. And I just think as sellers, we need to take that approach. We need to figure out, how do we get our little accolades, or how do we get the moderators of the forum, which are like leaders in the industry or our buyers and prospects, to recognize, hey, you're contributing something of value. And it takes time. It doesn't happen with one good post. It doesn't happen with one good content piece. It's sustained effort of good stuff over time. And I just think that there's a lot of value that companies have that they either don't recognize that they have, and are instead sending emails like the above, right? They're saying, hey, go and tell them why we're good, why our product's better. We make calls, emails, LinkedIn, and social. But really what you should be saying is, hey, we know how to launch into new markets over and over and over again and succeed. We can show you how to do that. We can show you how we do that. Right. Would you want to take a look at it? Would you be curious to see it? That's how you start off on the right foot. And then you can go back and forth. And then, there's other emails and other things to go if they don't reply to this. But I just think that that's where sales is moving, is how do you become the decorated forum contributor in your industry is the question a lot of salespeople need to ask themselves. And a lot of sales management need to ask themselves when they're instructing how their team should reach out to people.
Love it. Awesome. Can I actually give one bit of feedback to this rewrite, since it is yours, Austin? So I would be careful in terms of kind of using a topic to talk about a topic with assumptions. So you mentioned, I saw that you were recently acquired, which is personalization. That's a fact. And then you said, I typically find that means aggressive net new revenue targets for the sales team. So that's like a first topic. That's the first variable you throw out there for them to think about. But then you subpoint it and say, hey, hold on to this topic I just said to you, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. And then while you're holding on to this 9-word topic, I'm going to use this topic to then branch out why I'm actually talking to you. And so I'd actually say, I wonder how interesting this email would be if you maybe merged the sentences together to kind of get to the core idea of, listen, I noticed that you were recently acquired, which can usually mean these challenges or maybe this future state. I think you could consolidate
you could probably
it and make
just
it like
say,
a one-liner.
I typically find, or this usually means launching into new industry verticals to hit aggressive net new revenue targets.
Yeah. I think you could actually keep it pretty short and simple. And that is a trick to it as well.
That reads a lot better. It's more concise.
And if you have a subject line and then you have, hey, I saw that you were recently acquired and wanted to reach out, period, with a new line, then there's a chance that you'll only have the subject line and that line sticking out. So any particular other words that might throw people off would be hidden underneath the pretext. So that's something to think about too, is like how actually you want to present the first couple of words of your email to a buyer in the inbox. Look at you doing it live.
Yeah, why not? You could have for the sales team in there, but we're trying to be concise. Get rid of it. You don't need it. And then you can say, heck, you don't even need the very risky, because it's just assumed that if your launch goes awry, it can be cost prohibitive and time consuming to recover. Here you go. That's a lot more concise.
It is definitely more concise. Yeah. And in fact, this makes me feel like maybe we should go back to other emails that we've rewritten and rewrite those. Who knows?
Yeah, we can improve my other rewrites.
Awesome. It looks.
We're at the hour. We're at the top of the hour.
We are near the top of the hour. We have a couple minutes early here. So thank you to everyone who's joined us live or is watching from whatever source you're watching us from. Make sure to give us a like and a subscribe if you want to see more of us. We'll be doing this every week, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And send us your email. We do it anonymously. We'd love to check it out, dissect it, and then give you a rewrite that you can steal.
Thanks, everybody.